Hi BookTube, this is Johnny. Thought I'd make another video. I made a video this morning at the, well, I don't know what time it was when I made that video. It was in the afternoon. I was at the Book Nook, the library used bookstore, and it was super quiet today, but probably because of the snow. And I was just sitting there waiting to go home, and I thought I'd make a little video showing what I had been reading at the Book Nook. I showed you this book. I've been reading this book since last month. I've been probably reading it a couple months. It's Nicola Barker, Darkmans. I showed you that I got her new novel in the mail was it last week? Happy, by Nicola Barker. And I was reading this and I thought, well, I might as well get back into reading her other earlier novel. This novel came out in, this one came out in 2007, and this one came out in 2017. This is Happy by Nicola Barker. And I've been reading this, and it's like 838 pages. I've read 643. And to be honest, today as I was reading it, I got this feeling of fatigue. I thought, I'm getting kind of tired of reading this because, as I've mentioned in earlier videos, there's no really storyline. There's no narrative. It's just a bunch of stories. I don't know if there's any connection between each story and the characters. One thing that attracts me to this novel by Nicola Barker, Darkmans, is it's very well written. It's very interesting. The stories, the characters, how it's intellectually interesting. It's just she can really write. And I really have been enjoying reading Happy. It's another pleasurable, intellectual kind of reading experience. So, but I did kind of experience today at the Book Nook a kind of fatigue. I'm getting kind of tired of it because the kind of stories are kind of repeating themselves. And I get this feeling as I'm reading this novel, Darkmans, that she's kind of, the writer is getting kind of like, I don't know how to end this, but I got to end it. So I'm sure I don't know how it's going to end, but anyway. And I did mention that at the Book Nook today, I picked up Nelson. This is a biography on Horatio Nelson, who lived from 1758 to 1805. He's famous in naval history, Lord Nelson. And I found out when I came home and I was cataloging this in my library thing that I already have a copy of this. But I think my copy I have down in the lower level is an old beat up paperback. I have to go down there and search, but I'm not in the mood to dig through all those books to find it. I didn't mention that I did get back into reading yesterday The Most Dangerous Man in America, Timothy Leary, Richard Nixon, and the Hunt for the Fugitive King of LSD by Bill Minutaglio and Stephen L. Davis. I was reading this yesterday. It's kind of like, supposed to be kind of biographical, but to me it's kind of like, I don't know. But I wouldn't go out and buy it if you don't collect writings or books about Timothy Leary. But I got it because I've always been into Timothy Leary and psychedelic drugs and things like that. So, but it's not really a good book. I did get in the mail. I mentioned to you that I got at the Book Nook last week a hardback edition of Golden Hills, a novel by Francis Spufford. This came in mail yesterday. So now I got two copies, a hardback and a paperback. I probably will start reading this sometime in either February or March. I have been writing in my diary today. I'm on page 105 in my on my 2018 diary. When I started writing on the February the 1st, I was on page 81 of my 2018 diary. And this afternoon, here it's February the 9th, it's a Friday, it's 4:35. My wife did go over to Grand Rapids. Our daughter-in-law is going to have Cora Lee. So Carol went over there, even though the weather's kind of bad. Carol always has to be at the birth of each of our grandchildren. So she prayed and asked for traveling mercies, and she left. Yesterday, my wife has been off for the last 8 days, and yesterday my wife had an errand and she was going north of Holland. She said if we want to go along, I could visit thrift stores north of Holland. Usually I just visit the thrift stores around where we live, but when I talk about North Holland, I'm talking about, 10, 15 minutes. And I found these novels, different books at these thrift stores. I found this novel by Robert Walser. This is translated by Susan Bernofsky. If I remember, this is translated out of German. This was first published, I think, Robert Walser lived from 1878 to 1956. I think this book came out in, around 1900. I think it was around the time before this First World War. But the New York New York Review Books have published his writings. So I was pleased to find this. And this is something probably most booktubers are not aware of. J.H. Bavinck. This is the J.H. Bavinck Reader, edited by John Bolt. J.H. Bavinck was a missiologist. He wrote about Christian missions. And when I was in Bible college, my major was Christian missions, and my minor was Christian education. And one of my textbooks was a book by Bavinck, who writes about Christian missions so that's why I got it. Yeah, he wrote Introduction to Science of Missions. And so I got that. It was only for $1. Then I picked up another book on John Calvin. This is by Michael Horton. I have other books by Michael Horton. This is Michael Horton, Calvin, The Christian Life, Glorifying and Enjoying God Forever. So yeah, I got this. It's on John Calvin. And then I picked up Livelihoods 3 Novellas by Rick Moody. Rick Moody is one of my favorite American writers. I highly recommend all his writings. This is his novellas. And then I picked up a novel by the British writer Jane Gardam. I collect her writings. This is her novel Fox Faith. Says here, this comedy of manners set in early 90s Britain centers upon newborn Faith Fox, the daughter of the sweet and healthy and hearty Pearl of her Surrey village, Holly Fox, who inexplicably dies in childbirth. Faith's beanpole father can't and won't look after her. Holly's mother, a matron from Surrey's gin and tonic belt, who's ostentatiously full of good nature, good sense, and sociability, refuses to acknowledge the baby whose birth killed the daughter she loved with such a fighting obsession. And so an extraordinary group of family, friends, and laborers and strangers converge to make sure that the rearing of Faith Fox ends up in the right hands. I know, I collect her writings. She's recommended by A.N. Wilson and Anita Bruckner, and I don't know, I've always read good reviews of her books, and so when I see her books, Jane Gardam, I buy them. And I found this historical kind of horror kind of novel, The Terror, by Dan Simmons. I've been collecting the books of Dan Simmons, and I found this one. So yeah, this is about the men on the board HMS Terra have every expectation of triumph as part of the 1845 Franklin expedition, the first steam-powered vessel ever to reach for the legendary Northwest Passage. They are scientifically supported. They are as scientifically supported as Enterprise has ever set forth. As they enter a second summer in the Arctic Circle without a thaw, though they are stranded in the nightmarish landscape of encroaching ice and darkness. Endlessly cold and with diminishing rations, 120 men fight to survive with poisonous food, a dwindling supply of coal, ships buckling in the grip of crushing ice. But the real enemy is far more terrifying. There is something out there in the frigid darkness, an unseen predator stalking their ship, a monstrous terror, constantly clawing to get them. So yeah, I started collecting his novels, horror, fantasy, historical, horror, fantasy, I don't know. So that's what I got at the Book Nook. And that's what I got at thrift stores. As far as I've been reading, like I said, I've been reading like I said today, I kind of got kind of fatigued reading the Darkmans. I'm getting kind of a little burnt out on it. So I plan to read some more of Happy by Nicola Barker. As far as I've been reading in the morning, I'm still reading William Perkins, his exposition on Hebrews chapter 13. I think I'm on verse 7 of Hebrews chapter 11. By faith Noah, being divinely warned of things not yet seen, moved with godly fear, prepared an ark for the saving of his household, by which he condemned the world and became heir of the righteousness which is according to faith. So that's what I'm going to read in the morning. This morning, like I said, I got up, I made breakfast, cooked for Carol and I, and Carol left to get a new cell phone, and I shoveled some snow, and then I went to the Book Nook, the library used bookstore. So that's it here on Friday Reads. Thank you for the subscribers. Thank you for the comments. One reason why I like Book Nook is people's comments and interaction, and because I really like comments. I like hearing what you guys are reading, what's on your mind. So I hope you'll have a good weekend, and until next time, bye.